You are full of life and vibrancy and happiness and just a gorgeous smile. I can already tell you're a magnetic personality, probably got a gazillion friends.
No, come on, not at all.
No,
I'm just a 75-year-old old guy doing my thing. That's all.
in doing a little bit of research and watching some of your content, you use a lot of the same words that I use.
Uh-oh.
Well, this is good stuff. Things like, for instance, you talk about nutrient dense foods. And, with your history as a periodontist, I would imagine maybe you've learned or studied or, maybe a little bit of Weston A. Price, possibly.
Oh, of course. But
Yeah.
it's very interesting. This is a good tangent right now. In dental school, and I would say that my dental training, although it was way back in the late 1960s, early 1970s, dentists never learned about Weston A. Price. The name never was part of our curriculum. His research, qualitative, whatever, his research never was discussed in dental school. That to me is not only amazing, it's sad. It's sad that approach was never discussed, that observational data was never given the light of day in dental school.
Now, just for the sake of those listening, tell us a little bit about who Weston A. Price was and what time frame he was and what he did.
Great time frame. I don't remember, but I do remember what was it? The early 1900s. I can't exactly remember when it was. I think he was the president of the dental association that had its own name at that time at some point. And he decided for some reason, and unfortunately, I don't remember the biography much, but he decided that there has to be a reason why people have healthy mouths and don't have healthy mouths. And he scoured the world actually to learn of indigenous peoples eating off the land, and then their more westernized counterparts having serious dental issues, not just tooth decay or gum disease, but facial abnormalities and jaw abnormalities. And he basically came up with a variety of concepts that had to do with the healthy diet and the nutrients that were in the foods that these specific societies ate that allowed their bodies to heal well or to progress well or to develop well. Talking about from the date of birth, having babies breastfed and not given bottles, and then on and on and on. He also had a lot of information about root canals, and many other people following him had other information about how potentially harmful root canals were. Of course, in those days, when they did root canals, they were really bad. I mean, I'm not a proponent of root canals today, and we can go into that a little bit maybe, but in those days, the root canals were very, very archaic and very unhealthy, and mechanically could never be negotiated to the degree that they are today. But still today, the root canals are highly questionable, especially in abscess teeth where there are more than one root, or the root is not completely straight. It has some kind of a angle to it in the bone. Weston A. Price was brilliant, and his research literally paved the way for people to understand nutrition has so much to do to the development of the jaw and the other prevalence of tooth decay and gum disease. It wasn't discussed in dental school.
Years later, there was someone that I admire, Jordan Rubin, who was the founder of a company called The Garden of Life. And he had written a book called The Maker's Diet. And this kind of helped me tie things together when it came to people like Weston A. Price, who had a very strong foundation in understanding the traditional foods that people ate with regards to the area that they lived in and how it met their needs.
Yeah.
And Jordan Rubin talked about looking at your diet from three perspectives. One being, well, he was a Messianic Jew, so what was written in the scriptures was important. And, somehow as we find out, those things in the scriptures seem to match up with the next two criteria. So that other criteria, tradition, and the third one being science. The example I like to use in the case of animal foods is, beef is acceptable in a biblical diet, but traditionally cows were out in the pasture eating grass. And scientifically, grass-fed beef is higher in omega-3s. I know you had a recent history of COVID.
Yes.
And I myself did too. What was your experience like? Because it kicked my butt.
Well, you have to understand my medical condition to understand what COVID did to me and why it did what it did. So do you want me to give you a little bit of background about where I was?
Absolutely.
So your listeners and viewers may or may not know that I was diagnosed in 2018 with an incurable bone marrow cancer called multiple myeloma, very specifically IgA kappa light chain multiple myeloma, with severe lytic lesions throughout my entire skeleton, meaning that my bones were so fragile they could break easily. My bones were literally looking like a person that had serious osteoporosis. And it was incurable, and I was given 3 to 6 months to live. So in September 2018, my oncologist said 3 to 6 months to live, or you need to start chemo right away, and maybe we can prolong your life. But multiple myeloma will still kill you. Basically, I rejected chemo. I created some of my unconventional cancer protocols to what I proposed was going to support my immune system, not cure my cancer, but support my immune system so that I could at least fight the fight that an immune system is designed to fight, and not destroy my immune system with a bunch of artificial, archaic chemicals, which would be chemo. Now, chemo is fine, I guess, for certain people that have a high success rate. I'm not a proponent of putting anything into my body that's going to destroy my body, but certainly I had incurable disease. Chemo would not cure my cancer. So I got involved with these ways of living and eating that supported my immune system. And I did quite well. As a matter of fact, in 2019, a year or so after my diagnosis, I was still alive, but I had a serious accident. You can call it an accident. I was standing in my bathroom, brushing and flossing my teeth, and I twisted to the left to throw my dental floss away. At that time, it was August of 2019. When I twisted about 90 degrees, I didn't realize how fragile my bones were. My right femur snapped in half. I crashed to the floor, broke several ribs, and broke my right humerus in half. So I'm lying on the floor, literally in pain, and I'm screaming for my wife, and I knew it was pretty bad. And finally, the emergency techs come and they take me to the hospital, and I thought I was ready to die, and I wanted to die. And as a matter of fact, they fixed my right femur and they put me into a hospital to die. Interestingly, there was a hurricane coming through Charleston in September of 2019, and it was going to have a direct hit to the hospice hospital. All the patients had to be evacuated, and they didn't know where to send me. My wife was an RN, and they sent me home. My wife got a hospital bed, and I was at home in hospice. But my wife gave me a little bit of tough love. She's a phenomenal, strong woman and really is my anchor. And she basically said, look, let's get back on your unconventional cancer protocols. Let me get a physical therapist in. Let's see if we can get you out of this terrible funk, and maybe you'll do better. And lo and behold, I did. And I got out of bed. I got a catheter finally out of my body, which was a terrible experience. And then within a month, in October, I revoked hospice and went back to my oncologist, who was amazed that I was alive. Now, all of this is a precursor to just telling you I have done a lot to improve my immune system. So I guess it would be June of 2021, I was taking an immunotherapy drug, which was not chemo, but it was supposed to support my immune system and kill some of the malignant plasma cells. And I had a very bad reaction to that, and it weakened my immune system. And when it weakened my immune system, I got COVID. So the interesting thing is, COVID just killed me. I never had a cough. I never had a fever. I never lost taste. The upper respiratory issue I took care of with some inhalation of hydrogen peroxide. And then everything was good, but I had lingering lethargy and lots of achy muscles and that joint issues. But I never had to take any medicine. I never had to go to the hospital. And I attribute that to the immune system that I built up all along from the time of my diagnosis. And that's my experience with COVID.
Wow. There is a lot to unpack in that. And I want to go back to when you said you were on hospice. What year did you say that was?
2019. It was August of 2019, 1 year after I was diagnosed with this incurable bone marrow cancer.
And I think hospice, they kind of have a set of guidelines, because you had already indicated that prior to that, you were given 3 to 6 months based on your diagnosis. And then I think putting in the hospice system is, also a short window of expectation.
Right.
And you used a term that I have never heard before. And you said, I revoked my hospice. I've never heard that. And I didn't know it was even a possibility. I didn't know it happens.
Most people, 99% of the people that are in hospice die in hospice. That is the process. Hospice is a phenomenal organization, by the way. It is independently run. So there are good hospice companies and there are not so good hospice companies, just like there are good nurses and bad nurses. So the hospice organization, if you get into a good one, number one, you can't be admitted unless you have a diagnosis or a prognosis of, I think, no more than a year to live. Sometimes it's only 6 months. And that's the prognosis. That doesn't mean that you have to die, but that's what the doctors say you're going to do, and therefore you're eligible for hospice. So hospice is basically pain control. They control your pain so that you die comfortably. Yeah. That's the whole idea, but they do a whole lot more. They also have social services to help you psychologically, to help your spouse psychologically. They have financial counseling if you don't have your finances in order. They have counseling in what to do with a cemetery or however you're prepared to die. They do a lot for you along the way. But if you are doing well, your doctor can still allow you to stay in hospice even though you don't die, because if you still have this prognosis that is terminal, you're still eligible to continue with hospice. So what happened with me is I was terminal, or at that point, thinking I was certainly incurable. And that was the standards of our oncology department in the Western world. If you do things that are unconventional and it makes you healthier, then conventional oncology is surprised and you could get out of hospice. So I revoked hospice, and revoking hospice means that I'm now allowed to go back into medical treatment. When you're in hospice, you can't have medical treatment. So you can't have x-rays and you can't have medicines prescribed to you for curing a disease, because hospice is only designed to take care of pain and doesn't allow the combination of normal medical treatment as well as pain control. So yes, I did revoke hospice.
That's the best understanding I've ever gotten from it, best explanation. And, who better from than someone that's been through it and then out of it. So thank you for sharing. That is awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. I guess you could say I've been to the edge of death and then have come back.
Now, the other thing that really excited me in your story so far was hearing that ringside pep talk from your wife.
Oh my God. So all I can tell you is she understands tough love. And if you see a person giving tough love, you're not so sure they're giving you tough love or they're just badgering you and arguing with you. So my wife is a very strong individual. And she basically said, what the hell's going on, Al? You did so well. What are you giving in for? Don't become a victim. If you're going to die, okay. But if you're not going to die yet, let's fight. So that's exactly what she helped me do. Yeah. And she has helped me with bouts of depression. I mean, can you imagine yourself walking into a doctor's office thinking that you have a torn rotator cuff because your muscles are sore in your shoulder or whatever, and all of a sudden all the lab work or the x-rays come back and says, oh no, you have a cancer that's going to kill you. I mean, all of a sudden your life turns around.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Wow. Amazing. Now, you have these protocols that you've developed, and I took a sneak peek already on your blog, drdanenberg.com. Yes. I will have links below the video of this, and I'll have the URL on the podcast. I can't hot link on the podcast or anything there, but all the content is going to be made available to everyone. And when you get an email, my followers, the links are going to be there to your blog. I want you to check out especially the page of the 11 unconventional cancer protocols. And what's really cool is I use a lot of these very same things. You don't have to have cancer to employ these things in your life and benefit from them. I want to talk about a few of them. And sure. One of the things that you mentioned when it came to food, animal foods, nose to tail. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. Surprise, I'm not in the plant-based world. There is so much research with humans, not animals, humans that have severe chronic disease and cancers that are literally being cured in areas of the world that are not the United States per se, but for example, in Budapest, Hungary, the clinic called the Paleo Medicina Clinic, they have been in existence for maybe 11 or so years now. They treated over 6,000 patients now, and they only treat severe chronic disease and various types of cancer, many of which are considered terminal or incurable. And they treat their patients with a very strict animal-based diet. They call it the Paleolithic ketogenic diet, which is 100% animal-based. And I'll explain nose to tail to you in a moment, with no plants whatsoever, no supplements, and no prescription drugs. And they're getting results that will blow you away. And they report their case reports in various journals that are translated in English. And that is quite impressive. So nose to tail means, let's say you're eating a beef, cattle. Nose to tail would mean you're not just eating the muscle meat. You're not eating a ribeye steak every day, and that's your diet. You may be eating a ribeye steak or ground beef or whatever, but you're eating all of the organs. You're eating the animal fat. You're eating the bone marrow. You're eating the cartilage from the throat of the cattle. You're eating all of the elements of the animal nose to tail. And those elements that are not just the muscle meat have the nutrients your body needs in bioavailable forms in proper ratios. So there are no, I would say basically there are all or almost all the nutrients a human needs to not only survive but thrive are in these nutrients if you're eating the animal nose to tail. Now, the animal must be raised in a humane fashion. Stressed animals destroy their guts and their animal fat, just like stress destroys our bodies. So they need to be raised humanely. They need to be butchered humanely, and they need to eat the foods that are natural for cattle to eat, which is grass and those things that grow as grass, not grains, and certainly not be injected with hormones and antibiotics. So these animals are very clean, pastured animals that are raised in a humane way and slaughtered appropriately. And all of these nutrients make up the nose to tail. And that's where the body has received the nutrients it needs to build its immune system. And the immune system is the bottom line to health.
Yeah, and it's interesting. A lot of people would say, no, you need these phytonutrients. Well, what if I'm eating the things that ate the phytonutrients, or I'm eating things that ate the phytonutrients? They are in there. The lutein, the zeaxanthin, those phytochemicals, the things that give the salmon its color are the plant nutrients. It's in there. The things that make that dairy tinted yellow and give the meats their color. So we're getting the plant nutrients on an animal-based diet, so you're not really missing anything.
Well, you're absolutely correct. And the point that's really critical to understand is that the plants are living structures that have the desire to propagate. So when plants need to propagate, they need to grow and not be destroyed or eaten, or their species would disappear from the earth. So plants have innate chemicals in their leaves, in their stems, in their seeds. They have these chemicals that are destructive to certain animals that try to eat them. So when humans eat these plants, some of these elements called anti-nutrients can damage our gut microbiome without really understanding it. Now, if you ate spinach, you're not going to die from spinach in one day, but some of the anti-nutrients accumulate over time. And that's the big destructive fashion. But ruminant animals like cattle and beef have 4 stomachs. They eat these foods that maybe have anti-nutrients, but they have a system, a digestive system to destroy them. The human digestive system doesn't have the method to destroy them. But like you said, we get all the nutrient benefit in the animal-based nose to tail eating style without the anti-nutrients that are inherent in the plants that are there to protect the plants so they can propagate.
Oh, well said. Thank you. Now, I do like some organ meats. For instance, Braunschweiger would be like a mix of beef with liver, but liver by itself might be a little tough for me. Where would you get your, I know the answer, I'm a little cheap. It's on your blog, but where do you get your animal nose to tail nutrients from?
There are only a few. I must tell you, there are only a few organs that I like to eat. I will eat liver. I'm not big on beef liver, but I do like chicken liver. May not be the best liver, but it is a good liver. I do not eat heart, spleen, kidney, but I do eat thymus every now and then. That would be the sweetbreads, which is they're known by. But if you don't eat the organ itself, you can get the organs in desiccated forms. So it's very interesting to understand when you have a piece of liver. Let's say you have a piece of liver in your hand. There's a lot of volume to that liver. But if you remove just the water, you only have a lot of powder left in your hands. Not a whole lot. So that powder is desiccated liver. Now, I consider them as food. It's just that the water has been removed. I don't like to term them a supplement because in my mind, supplements are man-made, synthesized. They have added ingredients. They don't extract everything, only a particular element that they want to put into a supplement capsule or tablet. That's not what desiccated organs are. Desiccated organs are the actual, real, raw, healthy animal organ with nothing removed or added except the water. And it's encapsulated in a bovine cartilage capsule so that the collagen in the capsule is very healthy and beneficial too. So it is all animal based, no added ingredients, no other chemicals, no preservatives, nothing in it. And it's easy to take in a capsule form, or you can open the capsule and pour the powder on other food. So I just open the capsule. I might put it on my ground beef that I'm eating and eat it that way.
Okay. Now, and I noticed that you have a link to your favorite source on your blog. So to the people that are hearing this and they want to find out more about it, go to Dr. Al's blog, follow the link and look there. You're going to see these 11 unconventional treatment protocols. Another one that I use is the PEMF map.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I noticed that you have a link to it and I followed it. And it's like, that's where we got ours from. So tell us about that and how you use it.
Pulsed electromagnetic field therapy is fascinating. We are basically electrical beings. The reason we function is that we function because many, many frequencies are utilized by our cellular structure and our microbiome to communicate. We communicate chemically with different chemicals that cells produce and throw out to talk to other cells, but they also communicate with electrical frequencies. And electrical frequencies allow us to literally energize some parts of our body. For example, there are batteries in our cells. Every cell in our body, except maybe red blood cells, have these battery cells. They're called mitochondria. Some cells have 200 or 300 mitochondria per cell. Some cells that are working hard, like the heart, may have 4,000 or 5,000 mitochondria per cell. That's quite a bit as a big battery supply. But if those batteries are weakened, if the mitochondria is weakened, the cell doesn't function well, and that creates chronic disease and cancer. There are ways to re-energize those cells, just like you can get rechargeable batteries. You can put them in a charger, and all of a sudden the battery becomes full powered again. So pulsed electromagnetic field therapy has the potential to recharge the mitochondria, as well as improve the cell membranes so that ions can move back and forth freely through that cell membrane with, putting good nutrients into the cell and removing some junk that has to come out of the cell.
I get it. And I noticed that you mentioned you have 3 sessions a day sometimes, and the first 2 are different than the last one.
Yeah, well, they are a little different because generally when I wake up in the morning, I would want a more energized type of frequency pattern. And then during the day, it could be similar. But when I go to sleep at night, I want to be more relaxed. So there is a frequency pattern that puts you in more of a parasympathetic mode to help rebuild your body and relax your body. So those are the 3 different elements that I use.
And that's actually the only frequency that I use at the end of the day. For me, it's funny. In my life, I get to talk to people like you, and I go around getting all charged up, and I'm in this continuous sympathetic, fight or flight, excited kind of state. And at the end of the day, I want to wind down, and I'll set it for the longest cycle. which I forget if it's 30 minutes or,
Yeah.
but I only make it about halfway through, and then I'm done. It's like, oh, I'm relaxed. I'm breathing. I'm in my, parasympathetic, ready for bed state, and I absolutely love it.
Well,
It
when I go
definitely
to bed,
works.
the way I do it is the timer can automatically turn itself off. So I just set it for the time when I'm going to sleep, and I may fall asleep and it's still on, and then it just turns itself off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't manually do
Well,
it.
I don't have that luxury. I'm sharing mine with my wife, so we have it on the lazy boy chair.
Ah, I get you. I understand.
So I actually have to get out and go to bed. But
I understand.
now we actually have a similar favorite source of probiotics. I recently had Dr. Tom Bain from
Oh,
Megaspore
sure.
Biotics on my show to help us understand the why behind the soil spores. But you have an unconventional way of taking your probiotics, and
Yeah.
probably from a periodontist's perspective. Tell us about that.
Well, I've spoken to Karan Krishnan, who's the chief microbiologist at Microbiome Labs, and he and I kind of agree this could be a good idea. This has never been tested, by the way, but it makes sense to me. The spores in Megaspore Biotic, there are 5 different spores in that capsule. The spores have a tendency to attach themselves to biofilm. Well, biofilm in the mouth is actually dental plaque. And it's another subject, but dental plaque is healthy until it's not healthy. You do not want to remove healthy dental plaque in your mouth. And I'll tell you again, do not remove healthy dental plaque in your mouth. It is there for a purpose. We can go into that later. But interestingly, the spores would have the tendency to attach themselves to the dental plaque. So my thinking is open the capsule, put the powder, the 2 capsules into a jar or cup or whatever you're going to drink from, put maybe a teaspoon or so of water in it, swish it around a little bit. It doesn't melt. It just makes the spores go into a suspension, and then swish it in your mouth. Swish it for about a minute, maybe even gargle it and then swallow it. What I am accepting the idea of is that these spores will attach to the dental plaque and may benefit the health of the bacteria in the dental plaque. There is, I would say, approximately 200, 300 different species of bacteria in dental plaque. Maybe it's beneficial. When you gargle, it may be also beneficial to coat the mucous membranes of your esophagus or your throat as you're gargling. And then if you swallow it, you don't have to worry about the capsule trying to dissolve. It'll disperse immediately. They are resistant to the stomach acid. Immediately it goes into the small intestine and then eventually into the rest of the gut. So you're going to get all the benefit there. I am thinking that you will have a added dental benefit by swishing and gargling and swallowing rather than just swallowing the capsule. So that's what I do every night.
And it kind of makes sense to me too, because if we think about the soil spores and how we got them originally in our diet, where we, ate vegetables off the ground or whatever it was,
Sure.
Chances are, as we were, eating things with these soil spores in them, they went in our mouth first. They weren't encapsulated, protected from our mouth. So it makes sense to me. What else? And we don't need to go through all 11 points extensively. We'll be here for a while, but what on that page do you think is significant that people need to realize? What's different? Hey, come check out this page and get them and make sure that you're applying the things to your life that you should be.
Well, certainly diet is critical. And you mentioned nutrient dense. Yes, you want to eat foods that have many, many nutrients per calorie of food. Basically, that's what nutrient density is all about. An animal-based diet fits the bill. An animal-based diet is not necessarily 100% animals. Different people need different things. I would say at least 70% of the foods that you're eating by volume should be animal-based, and then 30% or less may be plant-based, but remove all the plants that have high oxalase lectins, and phytates, which are the anti-nutrients, as I mentioned, which means remove the nuts, remove the seeds, remove most of the vegetables. Some of the fruits are okay. Raw honey is also very okay, depending on what glucose or carbohydrate amount that you want to eat. Because what I believe is that you want to be metabolically flexible, meaning that you're eating and staying in ketosis without much carbohydrates in your body, so that you're a fat burner the majority of a week. And then for a couple days, you will add many, many more carbohydrates, maybe from excess raw honey and or fruits, to become a carb burner, because you want to fluctuate or vacillate from using the two basic fuels, which are carbohydrates and fat, for energy and other purposes in the body. That's the way our primal ancestors lived, and I think that's the way we should function. So the diet and the way you're eating is a critical element, and that also includes the water that you're drinking. Should not be just filtered water, which is this just dead water. You want to have water either from good natural springs that have many, many trace minerals, or you're able to add trace minerals into your water supply, because those minerals are critical for overall health. All those electrolytes are essential for our health and hydration of the water. So that all is part of the diet. The other element, which I think is very, very critical, is to have a healthy gut microbiome, meaning that, of course, the microbiome, the products from microbiome labs like Megaspore Biotic will enhance the diversity of the gut microbiome. What that means is it will improve the different species and number of species that grow in your gut of bacteria that will crowd out the bad bacteria so that they are not becoming pathogenic. That in and of itself is critical, but also the lining of the gut must be intact, meaning that you don't have a leaky gut. And if you do have a leaky gut, that needs to be repaired. So the diet is critical, and the healthy gut is critical. So those two are probably two of the most important elements that I put in these protocols that I've created.
Yeah, and it's interesting as you talk about that, knowing that you come from an animal-based perspective. I've always tried to help people heal their guts first and foremost, for strengthening their immune system and having, just the strongest. When it comes to strength and life and who's the most fit, I think of survival of the fittest, and who would survive in the wild, and what would that strength and endurance, and how would your fight or flight system operate. Animal foods are going to be a definite part of that. And in those, the cartilages and all those glucosamines and chondroitins, not only the things that are good for our joints and being anti-arthritic, but also a very gut healing. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
I am curious, when you talked about your water, I read somewhere about the molecular hydrogen. Are you using the Paul Barataro? He's Echo Water?
No, I am using HRW, drink. Let's see, hydrogen rich water, HRW. Yeah, drink hydrogen rich water. Boy, molecular hydrogen is amazing. The research goes back over 15 years. Now, the molecular hydrogen that is clinically effective and efficacious needs to be in a high dose and not continuous. So you're not drinking molecular hydrogen water all day long. You're drinking it in a big gulp, maybe in the morning, and another big gulp, at the right dosage in the afternoon. The research suggests that it is a phenomenal discriminant antioxidant and anti-inflammatory agent. Hydrogen is used in almost every metabolic pathway in our body. Very, very critical. And that hydrogen does quite a number of things, but it is a discriminant antioxidant, which means it neutralizes free radicals that are damaging to the body. especially the hydroxyl free radical, and not neutralizing the free radicals that a body requires to kill off bacteria and do other things. Unfortunately, most antioxidants that you take in supplements, which I'm not fond of, like vitamin C and vitamin E, are indiscriminate antioxidants. They neutralize free radicals, not only the bad ones, but the good ones. You can take too much of these. They can create other problems in the body. If you were a healthy guy, which I'm not, I got cancer, I get it. But if you were a very, very healthy guy or gal and you took molecular hydrogen, it wouldn't do anything for you. But if you have other chronic issues that you may or may not be aware of, it can do some phenomenal things. So I am a big proponent of molecular hydrogen.
Wow, that's neat. All right, here's a couple, I think, be interesting questions, and maybe a little tough too. Tell me about quality of life versus extended life.
So this is what I base my survival on. I have no interest in longevity. Oh, everybody says we want to live to 120. I don't know. My only interest is quality of life. So what is quality of life? It means that you and I can talk freely and comfortably via Zoom with a clarity of mind. I can think well, I can function well, I think that I can speak well, and I can enjoy what we're doing. My quality of life would be decreased if I could not raise my hand or head, if I was in such pain that I was being groggy all day long because of narcotics, if my body was deteriorating that I had to be in a wheelchair. Now, I'm not saying these are bad things. This is a decrease in quality of life. My goal is to maintain the highest quality of life that I can. I'm doing a lot of stuff, but I could die tomorrow. So my cancer is such that I will die from multiple myeloma, but I am not going to give into multiple myeloma. When the time comes for my organ systems to break down, to stop, to not function properly, I'm ready for that. But I am not going to allow that to happen if I can do things to enhance that quality of life. And I believe the secret to that is to maintain as best or as robust of an immune system as I can for my condition. And that's where I am.
Yeah.
Now,
and as you're saying this, I'm also remembering seeing a link on your page. People can actually schedule to have a meeting with you and help you coach through. And that is on your blog. There's a schedule opportunity, and you are every bit capable as we're having this meeting right now.
And I'm available, and I do 12-week coaching programs with people all over the world now, which is quite amazing. And, it kind of tickles me that I am able to do that, but I have information that seems to be so unique. I only connect the dots. Everything that I do has not necessarily been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, but I do use a lot of dots that have been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. And when I connect them, they make sense to me. And I have the broad view of, if it was good, if it was efficient for our primal ancestors to get to where they have been, and our primal ancestors, we are the result of that.
Yeah.
If we have that ability, we don't want to change that and say, I have something better. Our DNA, our creator, has created us with certain abilities if we only give our body what it needs, but never give it what it doesn't need. Right. And hopefully you can avoid those things. Yeah. So this is all based on the quality of life and my ability to kind of put it together.
That's beautiful. You've authored some books.
Yes.
And you've created your blog. What's your most important piece of work that you've accomplished so
Well,
far?
I wrote the Better Belly Blueprint, which is a very short ebook right now that is basically a animal-based diet, 70% animal-based foods, 30% plant-based foods to provide and support a strong immune system. But I have another book that's coming out that's called Eat as If Your Life Depends on It, which actually is going to summarize the reason why we as humans have evolved to where we are. And my concept of metabolic flexibility being to be able to be a fat burner as well as a carb burner and support my immune system along those lines. So those are exciting. There are other things that I've written that are there, but you know, the whole thing, I have so many topics that I write about. It's all on my blogs that are free. I mean, you can download any blog that you want, just search for a word, and any blogs that I write about those topics will pop up.
Now, I think your answer to this next question is going to strike a chord with a lot of people because they haven't gotten to this point yet. So if you look back in your, in your life, going back as far back as you want, I know that you've made some changes along the way. What do you wish you did differently?
Wow. When you're 75 years old, there may be a few things that you wanted to do differently. The interesting thing is, I believe that I have multiple myeloma from the exposure of two very, very toxic elements in my dental training. So I'm in dental school for 4 years and 2 years graduate school after that for a specialty of periodontics, which is gum disease. We were exposed, dentists were exposed, and there are papers that have been written about this. We were exposed to low-dose ionizing radiation continuously. Low-dose ionizing radiation are dental x-rays. Now, dental x-rays are not the problem if you go to a dentist every so often to see what's going on in your mouth. But if you're a dental student and you're around x-ray machines that are going on and off and you're not protected from the radiation, you're exposed thousands and thousands of times greater than anybody else would be exposed. And it has been shown that this continuous low-dose ionizing radiation exposure can cause one plasma cell to become malignant. Now, my disease is a disease of malignant plasma cells. If I have one plasma cell that becomes malignant and my immune system, for whatever reason, doesn't kill it off, or that cell doesn't kill itself off by a process called apoptosis, that cell can then can start to multiply and become a disease that manifests decades later. And that's what I have, multiple myeloma, 40 plus years after dental school. The other toxic element is free mercury. In dental school, we played with free mercury in our hands, like kids play with Play-Doh. And the free mercury is highly toxic. It's an element that's used in dental amalgams that I don't recommend for anybody to have in their mouths because of free mercury, but I'm exposed to it all the time. So free mercury and or this constant radiation exposure, low-dose ionizing radiation exposure, could have caused my cancer. What I would have done differently? Well, I guess I would not have gone to dental school because all dental schools did what I was exposed to. That's the only thing that I would eliminate from my life. Everything else, I don't have any regrets. I mean, I've made some terrible decisions in life, but we all have. But the interesting thing is, if you make some bad decisions, but you learn from them, the product of that is a better you. And I think that I'm learning from cancer tremendously. I think I'm a better person with much, much more knowledge today than I was when I was diagnosed in 2018. So, you know, there are downsides to everything. Anybody listening that has a terminal illness or a severe medical condition, I will tell them that even how bad it is, you can do something to improve it mentally, biologically, physically. There are different things you can do to weather the storm, but still understand, and don't be in denial, but understand this is maybe something that's predestined. And I do have a very strong spiritual feeling. I'm not religious, but I have a strong spiritual feeling in our soul. And we can get into that in a very long discussion if you wanted sometime.
That's beautiful. What would you like to most be remembered for someday?
I would like to be remembered for helping people understand that there is hope in whatever they're doing. If they're not doing well physically, mentally, you can improve your situation. And I would like to be remembered as a person that was strong enough to convince people to be resilient and have faith in what they do, and maybe faith in a higher being that is there to guide them.
Yeah. And seeing you today and seeing your energy and the life that's in you and the joy in your eyes and the smile on your face, it is a beautiful thing. And you're taking that challenge in your life and using it to help others. So, wow, what a beautiful thing. Thank you. You could have just, given up and said it's not worth it and wrote hospice out years ago. And but thank you. And thank you for being on my show.
Thanks for the opportunity.
For all the listeners, again, look for links below the video. Look for links below in the podcast description. Check out drdanenberg.com to get more great information from Dr. Al. I'll specifically link to your 11 unconventional cancer protocols. Some of the things that we talked about, the EMF map, the organ supplements, and there's links to all of those sources on your blog, and they're the very same things that I use in my life. Most of them I have to learn. I have to finish that page out and learn from others. So thank you for even putting that together for us.
Thank you. Thanks again
God
for the
bless
opportunity.
You.
Take care.